But who is they, actually?
What's that? That's a good question, isn't it? Who is they? Who is they? DJ Khaled talks about they, capital T, they. They're the ones who don't want you to win. They're the ones who want you to be broke, right? They're the ones who don't want you to succeed. They. Who's they? They is... There's different ways of thinking about what they is. I mean, one thing that they is within you. So you've always got to remember that. You're not separate from they. Just humans like to think of themselves as separate, right? We go, oh, we're destroying nature with our nuclear power plants. A nuclear power plant is as much a part of nature as a beaver dam is a part of nature. You are fucking nature. We are not separate from nature. We are all part of this thing, and everything we create is an extension of nature. And we have songs about this. Shouts out to George Carlin and his Earth plus plastic idea. But anyway, they is a part of us, and there is a part of us that wishes for us to fail. There is a part of you that is trying to destroy you. There's a part of you that is trying to sabotage you. There is a part of you that wants you fat and lazy and weak and domesticated and servile. And so there is also a part of people who wish to do that unto others. And so there is always this push and pull between chaos and order and liberty and tyranny. And, evil runs through the hearts of all men. And for the branches to reach to the heavens, the roots must reach to hell. So that who they are, they is us. It is in us. And there will be someone in your family who is a representative of the worst aspects of they, most likely. There's some they in everybody's orbit somewhere. And there's they in you. And whether you are propagating they deliberately or whether you are unconsciously doing it. And a lot of people are unconsciously doing it. And Carl Jung said quite correctly, how did he put it? The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, it will tell you. And in the Bible, it said the devil will make work for idle hands to do. And I say, program or be programmed. We're all very susceptible and easily influenceable. And if you do not take control of your own mind, it will be hijacked without you even realizing. And you'll just be out there doing the bidding of someone who's actually paying attention. And people who are paying attention can often be nefarious and have nefarious goals that are not to your best interests. So you should pay attention. And you should take control of your mind. And you should program yourself into being the ultimate version of yourself and go do something fucking great in the world. You bad motherfucker, you.
Wisely phrased, Akira. Wisely phrased. Yeah, like I've been talking last week, or I think 2 weeks ago, I talked to a former elite soldier, kind of like a SEAL. He was on the podcast and he was quoting some guy who's very US critical and could be easily described as I am lacking the term.
The Illuminati.
Illuminati, like these kind of guys. So there's some kind of super powerful, super clever people who basically orchestrate everything behind the curtains, so to say. We cannot see them. But if I go through the world, I see mostly not super clever people, but the world, I believe, is mostly run by idiots. And I would love to meet these super crazy, super intelligent people that know the outcome of everything that we do, and this message that is fed into that news agency, and then people react that way. I never have had the luck of meeting anyone who is even remotely capable intellectually to do things. So what you're saying, there isn't these 10 people that steer everything, and it's, I don't know, the big investment funds or whatever. But it's basically, it's not 10 people. It's a part of all of us, which is somehow doing something. So we couldn't find that one evil guy and prosecutor kill him, and then everything would be fine. It's basically, it's a wave, actually, which is somehow floating within people. So there's no single person or no small group of people identifiable and to be blamed. Did I get you right?
Partly. But both are true. There are people in this world trying to orchestrate things. More than 10. There's a lot more than 10. And I've met some of these people, and there are people all over the world trying to shape the world. And there's different hierarchies, and above a hierarchy, there's another hierarchy, and so on and so forth. And there certainly are people trying to affect change, and there are people, and they think they're doing it for the right reasons, and they think they're good. There's some of them you see quite plainly, and you see what they're up to. The World Economic Forum is a good example of this. The Klaus Schwab type people, right? These unelected, very powerful groups of people who think they know what's best for everybody and have control over certain aspects and have, representatives within the political systems of many countries. That's true. We plainly see it. However, there's lots of them, and they're all competing with each other, and none of them are as smart as they think they are. And certainly there are some intergenerational plans, and some people have got together at some point and said, right, we want to do this and then this, and some of it's happened and some of it hasn't. One thing they can never account for is the fucking stupidity of their children. And so they'll have, if you're having an intergenerational plan, but then your fucking kid is in the club doing loads of fucking cocaine and causing problems. And these are the people I met in Hollywood. A lot of the people I met in Hollywood were the children of very successful people. And some of those very successful people were involved in attempts to sort of corral and organize things, but they had neglected their children because they were so obsessed with their own, what they were up to. So their children were completely unfit for carrying on their work. And so there's that aspect of things going on. So yes, there are groups of people trying to control things, and but that's, none of them are as smart as they think they are. None of them are as capable as they think they are. For everything you do, there is an unintended consequence. So say one of the conspiracy theory ideas is that the internet was created to surveil and enslave people into a giant, inescapable digital gulag. That's one idea, right? However, at the same time, what the internet also did was give us the tools to escape said gulag, to understand said gulag, and to recognize said gulag. There is always the unintended consequence of every piece of technology we develop. So say you've got some people over here who are trying to control things. Everything they do creates an unintended consequence, which has in it the opposite of its intention. The seeds of our ultimate liberation are always contained within that which was created to enslave us. And this is always the case. So all these things are true. There are groups of shadowy groups of assholes trying to do things, but they're morons and they're not very good at it. And if they were good at it, they would have done it, and it would have all been sewn up already, right? If they were all so smart and so wise and so all-powerful, we wouldn't be having this fucking conversation. And there is the other aspect, which we will get, which is the thing, which is that what this is an aspect of the truth of humanity. And it's a manifestation of something that exists in everybody and everything. And as you were saying, it is a wave. And sometimes it splashes, it's too far and that goes very heavily in that direction, then it'll come back in this direction, and so on and so forth. And it's always moving, it's constant. And there is no plateau, only death. The struggle is eternal. And it's a fundamental aspect of existence. No light, no shadow. You know what I mean? That you cannot just have a sunny day forever. The night will come, and it must.
It's actually way more complex to understand that what the world might be if you don't think about these conspiracies as like an actual 5 group of super influential people. I actually also met some of the guys from the Young Global Leaders, which is like a sub-unit of the World Economic Forum. But I met them prior to them being evil or like being painted as evil. And so like these were super clever, super well-intended guys. And like now if I listen to like critiques of them, like I understand their points, but I also think like, if you meet these people, they're not evil crooks, like not at all, so to say. I mean, I understand that the Klaus Schwab guy kind of looks like he's the bad guy from Star Wars. But I mean, taking that aside, like most likely, if you would like appoint one super leader of the world, you wouldn't make him look like an evil guy from Star Wars, right? So you would,
Yeah, I mean, that's very
smarter
funny.
about it. Yeah? So, but I believe what I'm trying to say is that to me it's getting clearer that there is no super capable human, and especially not like an evil one. Like everybody,
No one thinks they're evil, is the point. Klaus Schwab doesn't think he's evil. He's not sat there going, wah, ha, 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 ha. Like, they all think they're doing the right thing for the best of this.
Crazy.
Everyone thinks they're the good guy. And everyone thinks that they're at war with forces of ignorance or evil or whatever it is. Right? So there's a bunch of people who think that what would be best for everybody and the nicest thing to do would be to kill loads of people so there's less people using up all the resources. And they think that with love in their hearts, they think this is the good thing to do. But everyone's good for the like. Everyone thinks they're good. Everyone's the hero of their story. No one's Darth Vader in their story. No one's sat there thinking, you know what I mean? We have a song about that. It's called Good versus Good. There's that Norm Macdonald quote. You know that one?
I don't know another one. Good versus bad, but the idea, I really like the idea.
What is it? I don't want to get it wrong. The fool, what is it? The fool sees the world as good versus evil. The cynic sees the world as evil versus evil. The truth, which everybody doesn't know, which few understand, is that what is really going on is a battle of good versus good. The idea being that everyone thinks they're the good guy, and they're operating from a point of doing the right thing, and that they think the other person is evil or stupid or wrong, but everyone thinks they're the good guy, and that's what can become very scary. The people who do the worst, and this is something that Peterson was paying attention to. It's something that Alan Watts talks about quite a lot as well. The people who are most convinced of their goodness and their rightness will do the worst things.
Thanks.
Right? If you're completely convinced that you have the information, that your cause is correct, there's nothing you won't do.
Right.
You have the whole trolley thing. It's like, well, if we're going to save like this amount of people, we'd kill these people. So if you're convinced that you're going to save a whole bunch of people, you'll kill a bunch of people. And whatever the fuck else you will do. You know.
So the question then arises, how do you find out if your good is the true good?
Yeah, exactly. Well, how do you find out? You don't find out. What you want to do is not be so presumptuous as to think you know. And not be so presumptuous as to think you understand or know anything at all. And to do not give yourself into such creepy and dangerous ideas as belief or structures or clubs. Don't be joining clubs. You know what I mean?
But wait a second. You were talking about like that weirdo thing and about evil forces in the world and evil guys doing the Pinocchio. So you actually, obviously, there's in your perception, there's a truth and obviously a good that you're intending to do and that you're transporting to the people with your music. How do you know that you're not on the wrong side?
Well, one, I don't think of things in terms of sides, and I don't think I'm on any side. What is it? I remember, what was Sage Francis's line? I'm not left or right wing on the middle finger. I sure it was cute.
Nice.
But not that. It's not about being on sides. You don't want to be on a side. If you're on a side, it should be the side of humanity. If it's going to be a side. So I'm definitely pro-human. I think I love humans. I love us. I think we're very, very cool. You know, we do dope stuff. And so what you want to do is you have to have a filter. Everything's a filter, right? So there is no way of knowing the fucking truth of everything, and there's no way of. Our senses are lying to us. That which we witness now is not that which is. That which is far too busy and complicated for us to be able to deal with. So our senses narrow things down to this cartoonish, caveman representation of an idea of of what is. That's what music is. Music is an intonation of that larger truth. That's why it's so exciting, and that's why you love it so much. Music is an encounter with the divine, which cannot be described but only experienced, right? That's what's going on there. So what you want to do is you want to think of these things as frameworks and operating systems for navigating this experience. And you want to pick one that brings the best outcome and the best experience within this experience. So I would say a bad outcome is lots of people dying. I would say a bad outcome is lots of people being unhealthy and sad and sick and miserable. So I would say ideas and activities which create more of this unnecessary suffering amongst our brothers and sisters, I would consider those to be non-optimal, and those would be things that I would attempt to counteract. You know, I would like everybody to be healthy and fit, operating maximally, able to pick up the heaviest things they could possibly pick up, both physically and mentally, things of that nature. I think that were everybody operating on maximum them, it's hard to even think what would be going to imagine. What wonders would there be? So anything that is...
What would you be like, right?
There you go, right? So with regards to like morality, you could think, okay, well, the things that are going against these outcomes, those things are bad. Things are making people, you know, sick and unhealthy and miserable and confused and sad or whatever it is. Those, we could think of those things as perhaps bad things.
But wait a second. Like, if it was that easy, so to say, that you, like, it would be right to reduce suffering. Taking your example of that overweight woman who was suffering climbing up the stairs. She basically could choose to suffer, to like eat less and work out, or suffer to climb up the stairs and like have more body mass than she actually needed, so to say. So both is suffering, and like she would have to pay a price. How to find out which price is better? I mean, we could just tell her that's the body positivity thing. You're good as you are, thus reducing suffering. So the people that you're referring to as the evil bunch, that tell people that they're good as they are, couldn't they be the good people because they're reducing suffering by claiming that people are good, making them feel better?
You could, well, that's what they do. That's their argument. However, you know, you don't have to think about that. You don't have to think that one through very far to realize the problem with it. You know, you do not have to. That's another, you know, all unnecessary suffering in this world is a result of a couple of things. One of which is, you know, existing outside of the present moment. You suffer in imagination of an untrue future that does not exist, or a lost past, which does not exist either, because memory is a recreation rather than the truth of the thing. And the other aspects of suffering, it's the unnecessariness of that suffering. So that argument, she avoided the suffering, the temporary suffering of the sacrifice. However, the suffering she received was eternal, much greater, and also then affected everybody else around her negatively. And you could go down that wormhole quite far. So, but again, as I was saying, it's to do with creating we don't know the truth, the cosmic truth. What we know is that we can create frameworks and see how our lives are better. So a religion is a framework or an operating system. And if the result of your life is better operating within that framework, it doesn't matter if it's not true, capital T true, which is you have no way of knowing anyway. But is it better than if you're an atheist? Is the atheist framework bringing better results for you and your people and your immediate community, that over which you have influence? That's the other thing that I was missing there, is that which is outside the domain of your control. You know, occupying yourself with that which is outside the domain of your control brings suffering and is stupid. Operating within that which is in the domain of your control, obviously, does the opposite, because you can affect it. That brings positive emotion and feedback, is useful. You can actually do something. You can get good. you can get really good. You spend your whole time worrying about things outside the domain of your control. A, you're not affecting anything usefully at all. B, you're not doing that which you could be doing, which would create positive change or negative change. You're not fucking doing anything useful.
Yeah.
Again, framework. The point being framework. Operating system framework is that which you are choosing to believe and how you are operating within the world, bringing you the best results. That's all that matters.
What you just said regarding the domain of your control. So that's the Stoic argument, basically, to neglect everything which is out of your control, right? And then you take care of yourself, and you're gonna have a happy life, more or less, right? And ignore the problems of the world, right?
But no, it's a bit, well, that's it's not so much ignore the problems of the world, it's ignore that over which you have no direct control. You can affect the problems of the world by working on what's within the domain of your control. It's a bit like Peterson's clean up your room thing, right? So
True.
Don't be running around out on the streets demanding justice or whatever if the shit that you can actually change is in a mess. So fix what you can fix and then start to work outward. And then if you fix this thing, that will have an effect on something a little further on. And that's how you change the world. That's how you save the world. You know, you make everything that you possibly can beautiful and pristine and great. And everybody does that. You are surrounded by beauty and pristineness and greatness. If people are neglecting their own corners of the world and running off shouting at other people about theirs, they just leave a mess behind them. And then you have all these fucking messes everywhere, and everyone's running around shouting at each other about their messes. Look at your mess. You didn't fucking clean yours, fool. And this is where we are. We have lots of people shouting at each other about their messes. Well, they left a mess behind themselves. So that's that.
Yeah, I think that, taking into consideration my own situation, that the definition of what is your realm of actual control is the core to the happiness thing. Because if you obviously you have control over your room, that's more or less clear. You also have a certain kind of control over your body, about your schedule, about how you work out. Happy. So once you fix that, actually, where you have clear control of, then we're entering the problem. So let's say you have a company. I have a company, there's 15 people. And obviously I somehow have control over what these people are doing, but also I don't. So I, for example, a customer calls and doesn't get a response. So technically that's within my control because it's my company and it's people that I hire that I instruct to take the call, for example. So I could refrain from taking responsibility and say, I never answer that phone. Someone should answer it. It's not my control. But the more your actual realm of control is enlarged, the more difficult it is actually to relax, because suddenly the leverage on the world that you actually have is much higher, and you cannot take the position of, oh, that's outside of my competence. It's actually within my competence in many fields. And I believe, a much happier person if I had less control over things. But unfortunately, I seem to have some kind of control about things, and that's a problem. That's really shitty.
Did you say 15 people?
It's 15. That's just an example. But taken, for example, this podcasting thing. So if there is let's say a political issue that I would disagree with, and I would really strongly disagree with, I could find a way to make a podcast about that and convince people that this is the wrong thing to do. So that's within, suddenly, because I have a podcast now, within my domain of power and competence. Not doing that is then neglecting my responsibility. And that's the Spider-Man line, with great power comes great responsibility. So unfortunately, that's a really fucking shitty thing. It's way easier to not run a business and not run a podcast and basically be entirely powerless, and then you clean up your room, do some push-ups, and you're done. It's like happy. But it seems to be
all the things you've spoken about there are like going from 1 person to 15 people. That's a fucking huge jump. It's not just a person. 1 person is not just 1 person. That 1 person is also their family, their network, everyone around them, right? So 15 people, that's a fucking lot of people. So if you've done that, which you have done that, one would hope the way you did that was slowly, incrementally, bit by bit, each step, working everything out to the greatest of your knowledge, making sure you understand everything, how everything works, the repercussions. If you push this button, does it do this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. Where people fuck up is by moving too fast and stepping outside of the domains of their competence too fast, because then you get into chaos. Like I was saying earlier, it's freedom, tyranny, chaos, order. What's the domain of your control, not domain of your control, right? So you move too far in one direction too quickly. That's a bad thing to do, because you're going to fuck things up. You're going to make a mess. And that's not good, God don't like that. So it's a case of doing things carefully and thoughtfully and paying attention and knowing what's going on, because it's not the domain of your control. If it's out of your control, it's suddenly not the domain of your control. So you could go, just because you have potential influence over something does not mean it's the domain of your control, because you do not have the control. I could chuck a fucking brick in that direction. I am able to chuck a brick, but I don't know if it's going to smash through that window, if someone's going to it's going to hit someone in the face or what. That's not a controlled domain of control, right? Just because I fucking can doesn't mean I should. If I do not know exactly what's going to happen, I don't know, if I have not considered all potential outcomes and all that sort of thing.
So what you're saying is that's the Kathy Newman sensor. So what you're saying is that there's a difference between influence and control.
Yeah, there's a big difference between influence and control.
And
there's a big difference between potential, the potentiality of an effect, or the potentiality of influencing or affecting something, and whether you actually fucking should, whether you have the capacity to. Whether you have the ability to, whether you have the skills to. And doing things, if you do not have the capacity and the skills, could be foolish and dangerous and cause way more problems. You know what I mean? It's like what Peterson's think about the military helicopter and the chimp with the fucking...
yes, yeah, true.
Whack!
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's better. No,
it's not better.
Yeah, no.
Not better.
Yeah.
Did not help things there. So like, just because you can hire 20 people doesn't mean you fucking should, right? Just because you can aggressively expand your business right now doesn't necessarily mean you should. Just because you can have influence on X amount of people doesn't necessarily mean you should. It's not necessarily within the domain of your control, because you do not necessarily have control. So it's the control word within that one should remember and pay attention to.
That's interesting. So there's a certain realm of competence, there's a realm of influence, and a realm of control. And if you have influence and competence, then you basically have control. But there's certain aspects where you might have influence, but if you're lacking the competence, that's basically the chimp with a rack and the military helicopter. You don't have any control about the helicopter flying. Only if you have the influence, meaning that you can go to that helicopter, like physically, and you have the tool and the competence that you can actually fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Akira, you're a smart man. Has anyone ever told you that?
Yeah. No, not usually. I am a humble beat gardener. I'm just in here like hitting things and making noises like a fucking chimp with a wrench. Whack. Yeah, it's the chaos and order thing, right? This is the thing. It's necessary to edge that. It's necessary to push it a bit, because otherwise nothing will happen. Otherwise nothing of significance will happen, because the things of significance do happen in the danger zone. That is an issue. That's part of why we have problems. But it's a necessary thing. I discovered this when I was DJing. The truly transcendent DJ sets would be the ones where there was a potential for disaster, where you're playing things you've never played before in a different sequence or in a new way, or you're trying something you haven't tried before. I've seen incredibly competent DJs play very miserable sets just playing the stuff they knew would work. And it worked, but there's no transcendence. It just works. This plus this will work. Girls like this tune, you play this tune, this will happen, da-da-da-da-da. But if you're not trying anything new, if you're not sticking one leg out into chaos with the potentiality of falling off the cliff, you'll never have that transcendent moment. You'll never have that stroke of genius. And you'll never discover that new thing. You'll only know what you already know. And so this is, the quandary that faces us constantly is straddling that area between order and chaos, competence and lack of competence, control, not control, etc., etc., etc. That is the one of the major quandary of the human condition, because it's fucking that up that creates the problems and creates sorrow and misery and unnecessary suffering. But not doing that creates stagnation, which also leads to suffering and misery and unnecessary horrors.